everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Charlotte.
I'm Brendan, and we're the Chatty Vets. Welcome to the Chatty Vets pod, and Happy New Year. Welcome to our first 2-week Takedown episode. This is where we aim to bring you up to date with all the latest news and products from the UK in the last few weeks.
We've got a really good show today. We're covering loads, from tips on blood sampling regularly cats, dentals, toxicities around this time of year.
Serious topic, I think, to get us started, the dreaded CMA report, which was published a good few weeks ago now.
Yeah, it still seems like it's the biggest thing that's going on in the moment, though. Definitely in the veterinary news anyway.
Yeah, it's been the most dire thing. I think we had a really big negative experience with clients a few years back. I remember when I was doing emergency work and all the clients were coming in very suspicious that we were about to rip them off. And I think this is where we've kind of gone back to again now.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. I feel like it's either the only thing that clients are talking to me about, or they really don't have a clue that it's actually going on at all. But I think, regardless of the actual report itself, clients have been moaning for such a long time about costs. And to be honest, especially coming from working in an out of hours clinic, I have to say I do feel for them quite a lot of the time. It is a lot of money that we're asking them for really often. But to be fair, my patience does wear a little bit thin sometimes, especially when you have an uninsured French Bulldog owner that comes in and claims to have no knowledge that their dog is likely to have any breathing problems whatsoever. What's a brachy? Didn't even know that was a thing. Or have any difficulty giving birth and have absolutely no funds to treat them at the time when needed. So, I think some people are a little bit easier to feel a bit sorry for. But I guess on a serious note, I think the general public think we are super expensive. But I guess part of the reason for that is because on the whole, we get our human medical care for free. So people generally don't have a clue how much things cost and how much medical treatment would actually be if we'd pay for it. So I do wonder if they really have as many issues with costs and people arguing about money in America, because obviously everyone pays for their own healthcare. So everyone, maybe people understand how much everything actually costs.
Yeah, can I say my wife? Yeah, she might not want me telling you about this, but she had some dental treatment. So I've said it now. She had some dental treatment, and they had to do a dental flap, like just pulling the gum down and stitching over. And we had to go to this really super duper kind of specialist person who did this flap, and I think it would have cost a couple of thousand if we were private, or no more than that, 2,000 or 3,000. It was huge, but somehow we managed to. I think we got it NHS, can't remember. But I remember thinking, gosh, there's people who do we do a flap on every one of our dentals, and this was just one, and it was thousands of pounds. So, and it's not just dentists, look at an interior decorator for a room, or a plasterer, or car for your. No one comes out of the garage and goes, oh, they're trying to rip me off. It's £1,500 to fix my car. They just go, it's £1,500 to fix your car. They don't. There's not that extra subtext. Why is it? Just because it's such an emotional area with animals, I suppose, they genuinely think that we're charging too much. It doesn't feel fair from our point of view, does it?
No, and I think it is all relative as well. I mean, at the moment, working in North Wales, obviously coming from a background of working in Kent, everything is a lot cheaper. So one of the practices I locum in at the moment, a dental on average is between £500 and £600 for a dog, which for me, for masses of extractions, is really cheap. Whereas back down in Kent, you'd be looking £1,000 to £1,200, but you still get people coming in North Wales that are saying, oh, well, that's so much money. I'm not paying that. I'm not paying that for dental treatment. And it's, I guess it's all relative, isn't it? But people just aren't expecting how much it costs because they just really don't have anything to compare it to, I guess.
Getting into the nitty gritty of the report, I did think they were a little bit positive about independent vets, and they seem to be slightly hammering the large veterinary groups. They kind of said they put the prices up more than independents, but they're not explaining to them, even though they repeatedly asked them, why the costs have gone up so much. And I think the large veterinary groups were saying, well, we've improved standards, but they didn't really manage to give them any evidence that was the case. Whereas the authors seemed to say the independent vets were not increasing their fees as steeply and were offering a better service too.
But I do think, though, especially from talking to people that either own independents or work in them, that they often don't seem to have the same leverage that corporates have. So, for example, a massive corporate is going to buy a huge amount in bulk from sort of medical supply companies, drug companies, etc. So they don't have to make their drugs as expensive to clients because their markup is still there because they're buying things in for that much cheaper. Whereas if you're a small independent, you really rely on your money income coming in from that markup that you're putting on products. And if you're having to reduce the cost of everything to compete and to make things really transparent, or you're completely losing that markup altogether because we're sending them to sort of with a written prescription to something online. I just do wonder if it's going to hit the independents harder. And I think it's great that we're providing transparency for how much we're charging, giving people estimates. But I think it's really tricky. Ultimately, things need to get a bit cheaper, or people need to understand exactly how important insurance is to be able to cover their costs. But I just don't really know what the answer is.
I'm gonna say this, but hopefully none of my bosses are listening. I think this is a me thing. When they need a household spray, indirects,
Mm,
I will often just send them a link to get it online because it's like 11 quid.
yeah.
Because I feel like I'm ripping them off. It's bad because it's an easy win for me, but it's probably not great for bosses. But does it develop a bit more trust?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's that sort of finding that line, isn't it? It's getting enough trust with clients, sorry, not customers. I'm not on a shop, but it's trying to get that sort of that enough trust with them to say, you could buy it from there or you can get it from us. I mean, what I normally say is we have some on the shelf, so if you want me to put it up, then that's absolutely fine. I can do it for you now, or you can have a little think about it and order it online if you fancy. And then a lot of the time, people will just go, "Oh no, we get it from you." Like, fine, whatever. But then at least you feel like you've been transparent and said, you can get it online if you want to. So maybe that's the way to go. Maybe not to say it's a lot cheaper if you buy it online. Maybe that's a bit of the line that we shouldn't be crossing. But, to say there is an option for you to buy it online. So if you want to have a think about it and get back to us, then let us know because then they can make up their own mind. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm far too like direct. That's just, yeah, that's my problem. But I mean, I'll have Pet Drugs Online or whatever, or Vet UK on my screen, and showing the drugs. Oh my god, all my bosses, I'm going to get sacked from everywhere I work. Okay, this podcast got off to a bad start because I've talked about my wife. I've talked about what I do really badly at work. Well,
Hopefully, no one will probably listen and then we won't
no
have to
one will
worry. So
listen.
it's fine.
Exactly. First episode. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay. Well, there's me. I work for two independents and one Linnaeus group practice. Do you have a favourite out of the different places you work?
Thing is it changes all the time. So I'm currently working for like a corporate out of hours, and then I do a bit of locoming. And at the moment, I'm in an independent. And don't get me wrong, like I've worked for some really great independents, but some really not so great ones as well. And I've worked for some pretty good corporates, but some really not great corporates as well. I don't know. I think it is less about the company that you're working for and the overarching structure of that company and more about who your direct line manager is. Like if you have a great CD, like if you're clinical director of that practice or your JVP or whoever it is that's running it, if they're really great and they get it and they manage their staff well and they look after you, then like, I literally don't think you can get much better than that. If you've got a good team around you, regardless of where you're working, that is the most important thing. I do have to say, I don't know about you, Brendan, but I love the idea of working for an independent. I think we all do. But you do also then have the issue of things like, sick pay, maternity leave, match pension contributions, all of those sort of things that sadly, sometimes the independents just can't quite meet the same benefits as the corporates because their money pot's just that much smaller. So it is a real shame, but
Well, I feel like I'm revealing too many things about myself, but there's another thing that I do, which I don't like. I think they do this, I believe, but it's not happened in the Linnaeus practice yet. But they look at all your, turnover and how many times you've used the ultrasound machine. And, they can really kind of micro detail, well, you've had this many ear cases and you've done this many cytologies or whatever. I don't like being is this really bad? I don't like being monitored. I really react
no.
badly. I'm very sensitive. And I feel like independents have been more just looking at me overall rather than looking at numbers. And
Yeah.
I feel like they're getting a better idea who I am and
Mm.
appreciating me. Whereas the corporates, it's tended to be a little bit numbers based. And yeah, I don't want to start playing that game of trying to hit different numbers for things. Like I never used, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. How's
All the
that?
benchmarking and the
Yes.
targeting and yeah, it's hard like to say, like where I currently work, it's you need to hit this many blood samples per month and you need to hit this many admits and this many sort of repeat POCUS tests and things like that. It's a lot. But I think, in a way it's good because it reminds us that those things are a good thing to keep doing for our patients. But I think it pushes it too far to be saying, well, I'm not just going to take bloods on something just for the sake of upping my benchmarking. Like if I don't think it's necessary for that patient, I'm not going to do it. But sometimes it does push you to that point where you think, well, I don't really feel like I need to, but maybe I should because the benchmarking is telling me that I should. Do you know what I mean? It's that fine line to be between helping you to be a better vet versus making you a corporate vet. It's very different.
Yeah, I've got this like rosy idea that if you treat people well, clients well, and you win their trust, then in the end you'll make more money for the practice because they'll go and say, "Oh, we
Mm,
had a great vet, he's really good, da di da." And in the end, in the medium term and longer term, it's more successful than that type of behaviour where you can lose their trust because you're not fully out to look after them.
yeah. But then I also think as well, we have to not forget that we are professionals at the end of the day and people are paying for our services. Like, I think we're in danger of almost getting to the point where we're devaluing ourselves so much that we're saying, actually, you can buy it cheaper online, go and do that. And actually, no, people should, in a way, people should be listening to our advice. And if we're saying that we recommend that you should do this, then I think sometimes if we push it so much the other way that we're putting so much trust into our clients that we're saying, well, these are all the different places that you could buy these things from, and these are all the different options that you have. Just pick what you like, rather than saying, we're the veterinary professionals in this instant. This is what we'd recommend, and this is what we think you should do. There's that fine line between being so transparent that people get lost and think, well, I've come for advice and now I don't really know. It's like a muddied water. You've given me so many options. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do next. Versus, being that sort of dictatorship type vet where you're saying this is what you need to do and you need to spend all your money here. It's getting that line, isn't it? And I just think we're not quite hitting that right at the moment. Right. Well, I think that's probably enough of the business side of things for now. What do you reckon, Brendan? Maybe let's get
Yep.
back to some juicy clinical stuff, I reckon. Still sticking to things that are a bit tricky, though. Why don't we talk about spicy cats? Any tips on blood sampling nervous cats?
Right. Okay. Hold on. Yes. The first thing is this is amazing nurse I work with in Tenterden, Kath, who does. I've seen people do this, but she does it really well. She does the slow blink, and when she first did it, I was a little bit smiling inside, but she's done a couple since. And I think it's really worked on especially on the jugular, where obviously you're tilting the head up. She's doing the slow blink at them, and they've just stayed
What
really
your
still.
nurse blinks really slowly at the cat?
Do you not know? Yeah, do you know
Is
this?
that a thing? No,
Yes,
I
this is
don't
a
know
proper
this.
thing. This is a
Oh,
proper
okay.
thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
keep going.
It works, and it's
No
meant to
way.
communicate to them, I think, friendliness. I'm probably getting this completely wrong, but yeah, the slow blink. Yeah. Anyway, I was a bit incredulous. I think it has worked. I'm a convert. So that's one. Obviously, everyone gabapentin's anything that's difficult, which is good. And I mean, the gabapentin liquid goes down very nicely, but otherwise,
Yeah.
whatever, capsule. Um, my favourite one, which I've inherited from vets nowadays, is where obviously in so many cases you just get a cannula in the leg, and then you get the blood sample with a 1 ml syringe from the cannula. I found that pretty. I'm quicker to go to a peripheral vein cannula and get the blood from there than I used to be, rather than persevering too much with the jugular, especially with cats if they're really not liking it.
Yeah, I mean, generally, I try and be as hands off with them as possible, but I do find some cats are really chill about you being around their head, and then you touch their feet and they're like, absolutely not, get off. So I think it just depends on the cat, doesn't it? But generally, the ones that I know I need to be as quick as I possibly can with, I generally do jugular. But if I know that I need to take my time a little bit and potentially hide their head, then yeah, absolutely, I go for leg. But I mean, I usually use a bit of pheromone spray, love a bit of pet remedy or something like that, towel wrap, temp the neck as it's quicker. But if they're just not having it, then generally, yeah, I use the cannula technique like you do, Brendan. I think it's our ECC days coming into play. But generally, like your rules with every bit of cat handling, make sure everything's super quiet, calm, gentle handling, low blink if you're on that sort of wavelength. And I guess if you're getting towards the point where you're feeling like you need to pin or scruff that cat, just stop and use drugs. And I mean, I think we always forget that drugs are in our arsenal to use for a blood sample because you're like, oh, it's only a simple blood sample. It'll take me 2 seconds, but sometimes it's just not worth it. But when you say GABA, what sort of dose do you use, Brendan? I mean, I tend to use this in cats that are a bit tricky to handle and usually like 10 mg per kg, but what sort of dose rate do you use?
Well, this is another shout out to Tenterden, because at Tenterden, the Sankport vets there do anything from 50, even 100, and sometimes 150 milligrams per cat. And that's because one of the vets went on a course and those doses were given to her. And they've been using that dose for a while, even those like mega high doses at 150 mgs, 100 mgs. And it's been working. We had a cat that, oh God, me and the nurse, we both looked at each other because it's a big, beefy cat. And sometimes they an incredible strength, and it kind of came out, and we were both like, oh my God, it's going to be Domitor. It's just something about it. But the guy couldn't afford the sedation. So we gave it 150 milligrams of gabapentin, and it was just putty in our hands. It was
No way.
amazing. And that was, honestly, I would have thought that was going to be a Domitor sedation. So, yeah. So, yeah. But I mean, they're knocked out for 12, 18 hours or however long it is, you know.
Yeah. I think everyone's really scared of using high doses. And to be honest, I'm not really sure why. I know I'm a little bit nervous of it, but again, I don't really know why, because surely it's much more scary using medetomidine when you can't really examine the cat properly beforehand anyway. But I think GABA's still the lesser of the evils in those cases anyway. So yeah, I think the high doses are good, but yeah, I don't know.
I've got a funny, talking about scary medetomidine. When when we were doing ECC days, I used to listen to loads of human ECC podcasts. And there was one where they said, because they always use dexmedetomidine as a CRI in humans, critical care cases and everything. And they said, one thing you never do, you never bolus dexmedetomidine. And it was really funny because I thought that's like 99% of what we do.
That's what we do every day.
Medetomidine, and we CRI about 1 in 1,000 or whatever with a whatever
No
reason.
way.
Yeah, we'll come to that later. But yeah, and I thought, yes, I get it, because obviously we get used to it, don't we? We get used to the profound bradycardia and vasoconstriction in the gums and whatever. But yeah, so yeah, it made me laugh that they said that. But there you are. So yeah, it's scary, it's scary, but we like it because it's fine, isn't it? I don't mind medetomidine. It's fine. It works. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, cold spray. That's the other one, isn't it?
Oh, do you know what? I use it quite a lot, but the thing that I really don't like about it in terms of cats is the noise that when you use it, like when you spray it onto them or cotton wool or something. I feel like dogs don't really care quite as much, but cats, like whenever I've tried to spray it directly onto their neck, does not go down well. But I think it's because it makes that horrible noise. So generally I take it away from the cat, put it on a bit of cotton wool and then press the cotton wool to their neck, and that seems to work really well. And you sort of know that it's working because you're pressing it on for long enough that the tip of your fingers start to feel a little bit numb, and then you know the cat's neck is numb. So yeah, I think that's well. maybe it's stupid and that's why. But yeah, I mean that seems to work really well actually. I quite like it, especially in dog stuff. And they hate it when you get the vein and they've got a really rubbish vein to start off with. You get it in and then they jump straight off it, and then the vein blows and you think, God, why didn't you just stay still?
Yeah.
Especially if you're busy, it's just the worst thing ever. So it can just really help.
Right, what's the next bit? Emla and cling film. We used to do that a lot when I was at the Laurels in Bromley. We used to Emla them, put them away for 20 minutes. I think that helped them chill out as well. I think that's a double benefit. And sometimes it was just because I don't know, whoever staff member was busy, so they'd go, right, just put Emla on it. And you do the clipping, you get the cream on, put the cling film on, stick it in a kennel, let it chill, and then get it half an hour later or whatever. And that would definitely work. I love that.
Yeah, I think it does really work. But if you're in a GP setting and you can say, okay, do this and then go sit in the consult room and go sit in the waiting room and chill out for a bit, then fine. But I guess if you're in a setting where the animal's quite poorly or it's an ECC setting or whatever and you need that blood sample pretty damn quickly, you don't really want to be waiting half an hour for Emla to work, I guess, which is why I think that cold spray is nice. But I don't know. I think either or, you just use what you have. And I have actually worked in places that use a lidocaine cream, and that seems to work quite well actually, and obviously works quite fast. So that can be quite nice too. So I guess it's kind of like is lidocaine, is that really stupid?
Yeah,
is lidocaine cream the same as Emla?
Yes, definitely, yes.
Weird. Weirdly, I don't know
like
why,
you've
but
just
the one
taken my bit. Yeah, go on.
But weirdly, the one that I've used, this is completely anecdotal and it probably makes absolutely zero sense, but the lidocaine cream that I've used seems to work quicker than the Emla cream, which probably makes no sense because it's probably exactly the same thing. But maybe it's just because it's in my head. I don't know. But anyway.
I do think when you get an older cat with thin skin, I do think that Emla works really. I don't know. I feel like it works quicker because the skin's always translucent. You put the cream on, it just does. That doesn't feel like it's going to take 20 minutes to dissolve in. So,
or maybe it's because it's not even actually numbed it. Maybe it's just soothed the skin. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's like an old lady when she's got cream on her wrinkly arms. It just makes them feel better.
What's that? Cocoa butter. That would probably work just as well. Yeah.
Bit of oatmeal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, I feel like we've gone on a massive tangent, but
we've done it. We've done cats.
We love a tangent. Right. Maybe we should move on to something else that we see all the time and that I think both me and you equally don't really like, Brendan. Dentals. I I really don't think that there's anything in veterinary that I actually despise doing more, but I think that's maybe because I have a bit of an ECC bias, so maybe that's why. But then I feel like a lot of GP vets feel the same, to be honest. And honestly, don't even get me started about dental x-rays. I love having the images. They're beautiful, they're easy to interpret. I think, great, these are the teeth that I'm going to take out. I can sort of associate it with what I'm seeing in the mouth. Lovely, feel like I've done a great job. But if you want me to take them, then you'll end up with an x-ray of a cat in another room rather than the cat that we're trying to see. I don't know. How are you at dental rads? Are you sort of a little bit better than I am?
I've come a long way. Because obviously 2020 to last year, end of last year, I was doing ECC, so no dental radiographs. And at the previous practice, we had such an horrible setup that we all got excited when it arrived. We were going to do dental radiographs, but we just all failed miserably. So I came into general practice this 2025 year, basically, with very little experience, and I was dreadful. But I've over the 12 months, I am now. I'm okay at them. I think some people would look at my x-rays and say they're awful, but I look at them and go, okay, there's root. And I don't I don't miss about 20 times. And this is the things I did wrong at the beginning of the year. That's stupid, but I think I used to focus on the tooth rather than the root. So in terms of where to
Yeah,
line it up. And then I think I've got a lot better at squishing that damn plate into, like, putting it a little bit oblique, and then you can
yeah,
get it a little bit further in. And I don't know, I suppose I've just got a lot bit quicker at I go with my hand, I kind of go, that's the plate, and I hold my hand in the air, like at the angle of the plate. And then I put my other hand up for the angle of the tooth root. Do you do this? I don't know if you do this.
doing
Anyway,
your little
this is what I
dental
do.
dance.
Yeah, and then I go halfway in between them. And I go, that's the direction of where the film should go. So, like, I've got two hands, and they go halfway in between. That 90 degrees to that should be how the cameras, not the
Yeah,
film, how the camera head's pointing. So,
yeah,
yeah, I've got a bit. I've got better, and that I've gone full circle, because now I don't think I'd not want them. And I look back now at some of the things. I remember I had a third upper incisor extraction. It was like the most hellish thing in the world, and I felt so cheated because I thought it was only an incisor. But now I look back on it, it was a dog, but it was ankylosed. I'm sure of it,
yeah,
because now I'm doing dental X-rays. I'm seeing ankylosed incisors in older dogs, and I
yeah,
didn't realize. I don't think I realized. Is this bad? Did you?
yeah.
Yeah. Do you know that
No,
they can
just
get
say it just.
ankylosed roots, like a
Yeah, but
cat?
I think you don't really appreciate it so much. You just feel like you're doing a crap job getting the roots out, don't you? But actually, if you were to take an x-ray, it saves you so much time, because you can think, well, I'm never going to get that root out. So you might as well just bear it down to the point where you can say, okay, well, that's already ankylosed. There's no point in me taking that. You crown amp it. Happy days, you're done. Bob's your uncle. But I think it's until you have the x-ray, you just feel like you're doing a rubbish job because you're trying really desperately to get the thing out. And then you feel and end up feeling really defeated, leaving what you feel like is a root that's going to cause loads of problems, when actually a lot of the time it's probably not going to, because like you say, if that ankylosed and there's already that disease there, then really, is it going to cause too much problem?
And I think it's changed how I look at dentals now. And now that I know dogs get
Mm,
ankylosed roots, yeah, it's been a huge change. The other thing is, well, this is where, do you know what? My boss, Dan, Ollie and Florrie Vets, he does flaps on every one of his extractions. And they're the
yeah,
best flaps I've ever seen in my life. You know, the upper carnassial where it's three roots, it goes so wide. I
yeah,
think, I'm never going to get a flap across all of those roots. It's so wide. And
yeah.
he just goes right up the side. And he's like, he just gets this lovely, stretchy, huge piece of gum, and it's no tension at all. Stitches it
Mm,
beautifully. It's have you got people that is this how common is this flapping everything and like making these
yeah. I
beautiful
mean,
flaps?
I think maybe I'm a little bit gun ho with dentals, and I just sort of go for it with my flaps. But I think like the bigger the flap, the better. But I think, as long as you get the angle of it right, so you're not affecting blood supply, then honestly, it just makes it so much easier burring away the bone to actually be able to see what you're doing and to actually visualize the root. I spent so much time when I recently qualified to try and figure out how to do it whilst causing the least trauma as possible. Whereas now I've actually realized you cause the least trauma by actually burring away more bone to see what you're doing more, because then you're doing less jigging and pulling, and actually it's kind of better, And actually, some of the nicest, weirdly, the nicest dentals I've done, in a way, they're horrible because they take so long. But when you get like a greyhound dental and you're like, cool, that whole arcade's got to come out, you know, that whole side. And you end up doing a whole flap on one side. And actually, it's blooming lovely because you can see everything. So I just make the whole flap, burr all the bits of bone over the roots, like cut, you know, section all of the roots up and then just pull. And it's lovely. It doesn't take long at all because you do it all so quickly, all in one go. And actually, it's really nice. So I think actually, the bigger the flap, the better. Just saying.
Do you know, I'm smiling because we worked together for a day, didn't we? We haven't worked together very much. And you were doing that terrier dental. And you know how you said you had to like go and do a greyhound and how it's all lovely and wonderful. You were well pissed off doing that.
I hate them. I hate
Where
dentals.
were your flaps then?
I have to be in a good mood for them, and like I really do. Sometimes I do one, I'm like, do you know what? That was really, like I had one the other day. There was this dog that came in, I think it was a pug or something, and it had, yeah, that was it. It was an old pug and it had cardiac issues, but it got to the point where its teeth were causing it so much problem. It was really affecting its quality of life. And I said to the owner, I was like, look, it's mega risky. But I said, ultimately, it's in so much pain with its mouth. I was like, let's just do a sort of a damage control dental, get as much of the bad stuff out as possible to make him as comfortable as we can do, as quick as we can. And honestly, I think I took about 8 teeth out in about 20 minutes. I don't know how I did it, you know, and I probably and I felt like a superhero. I was like, I don't know how I've just done that. But sometimes it takes me like 40 minutes to get one carnassial out. That's the thing that I hate. But maybe I think I like them when they're so diseased that you just wiggle and pull. That's quite nice. But otherwise, I get a bit frustrated.
Yes.
So I just don't have the patience. I think that's my problem.
This is a bit embarrassing because I've been a vet so long, but I had a complete break from general practice for 4.5 years. So I hadn't done at the beginning of 2025, I hadn't done a cat spay for 4.5 years. So, and they're one that I was like, oh, I did 2, my first 2, and they were perfect. They were skinny little things anyway. And I thought, this is all right. And then I had a really fat one. And also when you're, when you're a locum and, or, you know, you're working for someone for the first time, you put this pressure on yourself that you want to, you know, all the new staff around you, you want to be looking good. So that adds to the pressure. I don't know if this is something you feel. Anyway, and then I had a really fat cat spay and it took me, I was really rubbish. It took me, I don't know, 30, 40, I don't know how long. It took me a long time to find the damn womb. And then since then I've been mostly good, but I have the odd one. Like I had one the other day actually, and it took me about, you know, when you don't go through the peritoneum properly.
So and then you're fishing around.
Well, like I was very aware of that. I had these really blunt scissors. I'm going to blame those scissors. And I lift it up really high. You know, I guess flank, So I'm lifting up the muscle and everything really high. And I go like almost horizontal through the muscle. And then because I'm lifting up the peritoneum, I can then like go on through the peritoneum. I did that, but I think the scissors weren't quite sharp or something. And I didn't get through. And then, it's like you have to try and tear it like randomly. Is this, have you had this?
Yeah, and I've been like, I can see it. Why can't I grab it? And it's like, it's because it's underneath the peritoneum. That's why. Honestly, I was chatting to another vet the other day, and I'm not going to say who they are or where they're from, but they were saying that, I mean, fantastic surgeon. They've done surgical cert, like absolutely great, but they've always done midline cat spays. So they did a flank cat spay the other week. Well, like normally really chatty in surgery, and the nurse started trying to chat, and they were like, "No, I can't talk to you right now." And it took them about, 30 minutes to realise that they were rooting around in the leg muscle.
Yes, I do know this.
Think, do you know what? It's so funny because it just happens, and it just shows that like it happens to all of us. Like sometimes you do this like really stupid thing that you think, oh God, why has that happened? You know, everyone's got a story, haven't they? But it does make me laugh. So
I did that when I was a new grad, but so ever since that moment, I do my little fingers to tell you where to go in. I do a double check and I just press. It sounds ridiculous. I just press to see that I'm on the abdomen, not the leg as well. Like there's like a finger's gap between the leg usually, at least, I think, finger and a half. But ever since that incident. Yes, I know. Anyway, we sidetracked, didn't we? Do you know what we really sidetracked? We were meant to talk about that blue wiry mat that you put under dentals, but frankly, that's quite boring, isn't it? Should we just forget that?
Yeah, I mean, it's gross.
I don't know why I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, but there's always like teeth and blood clots and minging stuff caught in, isn't it? And I'm always like, oh, I'm not dealing with that. It's gross. But
hold on, dental ties. Is this another time? Do we talk about the ET tube ties rather for dentals? That's a
Yeah.
big thing because every
What, as
clinic
in which ones to
almost has got a
use?
different. Yes, there's so many
Oh,
types. Have you
do you
been
know what?
finding this?
I hate those plastic ones that just don't tie together properly. They're like, have you had that? They're like
Orange,
plastic strings. Yeah, it's crap. It
the
like
orange
doesn't
one.
tie together. Yeah, it's so annoying. I hate it. It's
I've got
probably really easy to clean, but it really annoys me.
I've got a tip, I think, because last week at Olinflori, the nurse said they have a visiting dentist specialist, and he
Yeah.
uses the orange thing, but it's a different type he buys off Amazon. And I had a feel of it, and it's got a little bit of stretch. Memory, so you
Oh,
pull it,
okay.
it's a little bit of elastic kind of feel, and I just
Yeah.
thought, oh yeah, that's gonna knot better on the ET tube. So
Yeah.
it's reusable, washable, doesn't get caught on your. This is another me thing. I think I do this more than anyone else because I mess around with the drill or whatever, and I always get it on the gauze ET tube
Yeah,
tie.
get it stuck. Yeah, yeah.
I'm
And it
really
goes
bad at that.
like that. Yeah.
Yes, makes the worst. It always
Yeah,
makes
it
me
does.
jump out my
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I tell you what,
Yeah, go on.
the only thing that's ever made me jump a little bit more than that when that happened, this is again another complete tangent, but have you ever popped an eye back in when you've had like a proptosis? I had a honestly, it like makes me like a bit to this day. Like eyes are not my thing. I just can't like everything else is fine, but eyes are just not my bag. And there was this
Mine
little
don't pop in like that. Did yours make a funny
well
sound and plonk back
well,
in?
what had happened is there was a pug who's, I mean, it's not funny, but it is a bit funny. The poor little thing its face had been shut, like the owner had slammed a door and it had slammed onto the dog's face. And the pug, bless it, had like popped its eye half out. It wasn't like falling out of the socket, but it was obviously toast. And anyway, so I said to them, it still looks visual at the moment, but I need to put it in pretty quickly. I can't promise you it's going to stay visual, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I anaesthetized it, oobed the hell out of it, grabbed the eyelids with some forceps, and then was like, right, okay, I've just got to push and pull the eyelids back in and push the eyeball back into place. Honestly, like it makes me feel a bit sick thinking about it now. Like when I did it at the time, as I popped the eyeball back in, the edematous jelly type fluid that was sitting in the orbit behind the eye went like out out
Oh,
of the socket around the eye, and I went, oh my god, because for a second I thought I'd popped the eye.
oh gosh, that's
So
awful.
I was like, oh my God, the globe isn't there anymore. And I was like, I think it might have been Nikki that I was working with at the time. And I was like, Nikki, I need you to look at the eye because I actually turned around. I couldn't look. I was like, is the eyeball still there? She was like, yeah, it's fine. But it's honestly, they make me
Gross.
feel so sick. It's the only thing that makes me like, ugh,
On
I
that
can't do
topic,
eyes.
don't you
Yeah.
do a lateral canthotomy?
Sometimes, but to be honest with that one, it was like it just needed a bit of a wiggle to get back in, like it hadn't been out that long. So it was fine and it did go back in quite easily. But yeah, usually I would. But yeah, honestly, it
Gross.
was gross. It was really
I
disgusting.
don't get a I almost feel like nothing's happened when I do mine. It just kind
Oh
of,
no, bleh.
yeah, I don't get anything.
Yeah.
So that's
Maybe
kind of satisfying.
I think maybe I dramatized it a little bit more, but it's because I found it so gross. But anyway. I feel like what were we talking about? We were talking about
I know
dentals.
this isn't a half-hour episode, is it?
We love a tangent. We
Nerve
really do.
blocks,
But
nerve blocks,
yes, that's what we
nerve
wanted to
blocks.
talk about. Do you
Well,
do them in your dentals?
right. Okay, now I've got a bone to pick with you. So,
Yeah.
I asked you about, I know you get the one behind the last molar on the top,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
believe behind the last molar on the bottom, yes? So that's kind of, no, is that wrong? Have I got that wrong?
So I do it maybe I'm really wrong, but I do it from the outside, so from like by the ramus of the mandible, so from the skin in towards the jaw and upwards, rather than in the actual mouth when you're talking about the mandible. Like maxilla, yeah, absolutely inside, like like in your if you're doing maxilla and you're going behind the last molar, then yeah, I go intraoral and put the needle up there, always a orange. But then if I'm doing mandibular, I go ramus of the mandible and go up sort of like it's on the medial aspect of the bone and you literally like scrape the needle against the inside of the bone and then hit the nerve up there. I might be doing that really wrong. If I am doing that really wrong, someone please let
I
me know.
like it.
But
I
that's how I
like
do
it.
it.
Well, that's a good tip. Okay, so clearly I'm not doing these very well, and I'm not really doing these. But so and then the other one you said, right? You go, well, I just feel it. You know the maxillary one above the, I don't know,
Oh, the little
roughly
notch.
upper premolar 3, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, and you said you feel it, and I the last two dentals, I've put my finger in there, and I can't. Can you really feel it? Because I remember thinking she's making that up.
I think so. This is if you're doing like, I don't know, if you were wanting to take like canines and forward, like if you're just doing incisors and you
Yeah.
don't need to do like the really caudal block, then I, I think how I do it is if you like check where the canines are, and then just caudal to the canine, sort of, I don't know, halfway up the gum, there should be like a little notch there. For the life of me, I can't remember what it's called. I go like my needle completely flush against the gingiva and just go up into it and then sort of draw back, obviously make sure you're not in the vein. And then I just put a big bleb there. And I often find that even if you're not in perfectly the right place, if you've put a bleb of lidocaine or bupivacaine or whatever you're using in that place, generally it should work pretty well. So yeah, that's how I do it. But
So
whether
you
that's the exactly
right,
right way to do it,
video yourself feeling this notch for me.
okay, I'll try.
And then, yeah, because I can't feel it. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the wrong place. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, no, I do think they're a really good thing, and I need to get with it
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, I mean, it has made
Yeah.
such a big difference to my GAs, the recoveries. I do feel like it makes a massive difference because it's so annoying if you get those little huffy dogs where every time you go to pull a tooth, they're trying to wake up and you just think, oh God, let me get it out. So like it does make a massive difference. I think no matter how good your anesthesia protocol is, if you're not using nerve blocks, if you use them, it will make it so much easier for you. So yeah, I'll try and make a video. I think honestly, what are we like? You want me to video myself feeling a notch? We've been
Well,
talking about
yes.
flaps, honestly.
Yeah.
Anyway. Right, maybe we should move on from dentals.
Okay, well, moving on from dental work, we'll go back to our pet subject, which is obviously our ECC cases and all the toxicities that we see. Yeah, so what toxins are you seeing these days?
Yeah, I guess if we manage to actually air on time, then hopefully this podcast will be coming out beginning of January, in which case I guess we'll have just gone through the Christmas period. So all of the big ones will be the big hitters like your raisins, your chocolates, your maybe antifreeze if people were seeing that. But I think owners are generally a bit better at that nowadays. And I think we do tend to see a few different cases, especially over Christmas, where I don't know about you, Brendan, but I really like those dogs that eat so much chocolate that when you make them sick, it's actually quite nice because it doesn't really smell like vomit. It just smells like melted chocolate and it's kind of sparkly because it's got all the wrappers in it. And I don't know, it just makes me feel more festive.
I agree, actually. I thought that was just me
Yeah.
being weird. But yeah, is it chocolate fountains you get at festivals and things? Yeah, it's got that kind of chocolate fountain,
Yeah, it's quite
that
nice.
lovely
Feel like you
smell.
want to dip a marshmallow in it or something. No, maybe not. But I think maybe we need to mention about raisins and the way of change, like the way the thinking has changed, really. I mean, traditionally, everyone always has done. And to be honest, there probably are still a lot of GP vets and maybe a lot of people listening to this that still do, where they always induce emesis, start charcoal, do 48 hours of aggressive fluids, and then basically recheck their renal parameters and hope everything is okay. I think the question I'm asking is, do we actually really need to be doing this? And to be honest, for me, the answer is no. Like, I definitely don't consider those 48 hours of fluids in all cases. And what do you think? Do you do them very often?
I'd like to know officially what you're meant to do, but I had a really good three-way conversation online with a
Mm,
internal medic, a ECC specialist, and a toxicologist specialist.
mm,
And they were all saying their perspective, and the toxicologist was very much from the point of view of flushing, but the internal medic and the ECC specialist were basically, you're not even doing that. There's no evidence that helps. And the one of them put on this publication in humans where in acute kidney injury that the patients that had slightly too much fluid were higher mortality, slower recoveries. They were getting more kidney harm, and overperfusion is just deadly to kidneys. So
yeah, 100%.
if you're giving a patient extra fluid, you're not flushing anything more through the kidneys. They're not reabsorbing as much water down from the tubules and back into the
Yeah,
blood. The same amount's going in terms of GFR and glomerular filtration rate, and you're causing edema in the kidneys,
yeah.
which is injurious to the kidneys.
Yeah, 100%. And you absolutely obliterate their glycocalyx in the meantime as well. So, I mean, glycocalyx is definitely something that we've been learning more about in the last few years in vet med. But honestly, there is no evidence out there that supports the use of aggressive or any intravenous fluids for preventing acute kidney injury, unless if that animal is euvolemic when it comes to you. There is absolutely no evidence out there. Anybody feel free to correct me if I'm wrong if you find some rando paper somewhere that says different. There doesn't seem to be any evidence out there that actually supports the use of fluids to try and prevent an AKI. Absolutely, if they get an AKI, yes, they need fluids, but there's nothing to say that that fluids therapy beforehand actually stops it from happening. And I think that the sort of fine line that we're at the moment is the VPIS is still suggesting emesis, charcoal, and 48 hours of fluids. But I think it's because it's not that there's evidence to prove that it works, it's that there's not evidence to prove that it definitely doesn't. And I think that's the thing that they're being really worried about, is they don't want to say, yeah, don't do it, and then find out that because they've not done it, it's made it worse. But actually, I really don't think we should be doing this anymore. I think we're causing more harm than good. And have you heard about this sort of lowest reported doses to ever cause AKI, Brendan? Do you sort of work off these doses at all?
I mean, I've chatted with the vets, it's like the RSPCA equivalent in America, who they did a
Mm.
publication, and they're the ones that worked out that tartrate's probably the active toxicity in grapes.
Mm.
But they did come out with something. I feel like they've been backing away from it ever since. And when they did their calculation for how much was toxic, they put an extra factor of 10 in there, which I
Oh,
think they just did to make it extra safe. So they basically
yeah,
said 1 grape per 4 kilos of body weight
yeah.
was I don't know if we can call it a safe dose, but was a dose that, would not be associated with any toxic effect. They used a grape that was like a huge size. It's some kind of Asian, Chinese, Japanese type grape, and it's like the size of a
Mm.
plum. So that
Oh,
grape is not a standard grape. But the reason they used that was they said, well, we don't know what type of grape people are referring to. Well, I
yeah.
don't know. I think we realised that people are referring to a normal size grape, not a plum size one. So that's
Maybe the
one
ones you buy in
kind
the
of.
supermarket.
So it's
Yeah,
super conservative. So you got a factor of 10, plus you got this
yeah.
fact that they estimated the size of a grape to be the size of a plum. So it's one grape per 4 kilos. But I think from that you can work out that you've probably got more
Yeah.
leeway than that.
Yeah. I mean, I think VPIS are generally working off the figures now where they say that the lowest reported dose to ever have caused an AKI that's been reported. Generally in grapes, it's 1 gram per kilo body weight of dog, and in raisins, it's 2.8 grams per kilo body weight of dog. So I don't know. I generally tend to, in these cases, induce emesis and give them charcoal anyway. But if they're on that line where, I don't know, it's a big dog and they've eaten like 1 raisin or 1 grape, then I definitely have that discussion now with the owners and say, look, this is the lowest reported dose to ever cause an AKI. It is not a safe dose and a toxic dose. I'm not saying that your dog will not get an AKI by eating below this dose or above this dose, but ultimately I leave it more up to the owners, because if you give them all of that information and they decide, actually, I don't really want my nervous dog on IVFT for the next like 3 days, then that's completely fair enough in my eyes. And I'm not sure that I'd be putting my dog on fluids for a couple of days. And I don't know, I think there's just more leeway than we've first realised. So I think it's more of a discussion that you can have with owners. And the other thing that I've realised as well is that there's potentially some evidence that says that grapes and raisins slow down your gut transit time. So obviously, normally we would wait 4 to 6 hours maximum before we're saying we're not going to make it sick anymore because it's not going to come back up. But supposedly, grapes and raisins slow down gut transit time, which means that in theory, it can be longer than 6 hours and you could still get them out. So for me, I actually, if they've eaten it within the last 12, I sometimes still do make them sick. Just again, warn the owners that there's a possibility it might not actually come out. But I think it just needs to be a bit more of a conversation than people ever really thought. But yeah, I mean, what do you do? What's your sort of baseline as to what you'll do for these?
I don't admit them for fluids. Look, I'm with you. If they're asymptomatic, they're maintaining euvolemia, and I don't think there's any benefit in giving them additional intravenous fluid. You're just creating more harm to the kidneys.
Yeah.
Now, when you started that conversation, it felt like, have you heard what I'd like to do is, because like you're saying, VPIS are saying that you should do this. And I think that makes vets feel really worried that they're going to get
Yeah.
into trouble. Have you had anything like in a big conference where they've said, they've backed up what we're saying?
So I did Cutting Edge with Vets now, the segue into ECC work. And some of the work that we've done after that is like chatting with vets in the industry and sort of talking through recent papers and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's more of a recognized thing now in the ECC world that that's what people do. It's just not made its way into GP practice quite as often. So I'm still getting quite a lot of patients referred from day practices for fluids. And I'm having the conversation with owners when they get in there and say, look, I'm not saying that your GP vet is wrong at all, but this is a slightly different opinion that I'm going to give you. Have a little think about it, weigh up all of the sort of opinions and the information I'm going to give you, and then make your own decision. And I think that's basically how we should do it. Like I definitely say, look, this is what VPIS are saying, this is what the evidence is now saying in the ECC world. Make up your own mind. If you want my opinion, this is what I do, but I can't promise you that either way is going to be safe. And I think ultimately just put it in their hands, because if you give them all of the information, they choose not to do the thing that in theory is deemed more safe with fluids, then they've made that decision with eyes wide open. It's informed consent. And I just think putting these dogs in a kennel for 2 days on fluids when they're really fine and well otherwise, I just think why are we doing it? We're just making them stressed. And I think actually, if someone can find me evidence that proves that it works, fine. But I just don't think it's there. I mean, yes, don't get me wrong. I still will try and take kidney values on day one, and then I'll still try and take it 48 and 72 hours post, because if you're going to get signs of an AKI, that's generally when you're going to see it. Normally vomiting first, then PUPD. But ultimately, I just leave it up to the owner and say, look, these are all the things you'd like to do. In an ideal world, this is what I'd suggest. Do what you want, basically. And it's, then it's up to them, isn't it?
I do kind of backtrack a little bit and kind of go, well, if you want to be really, really careful, you can do a blood test in a couple of days. But, it'd be extremely unlikely you'd need it. And I
Yeah.
think, did you just mention as well, I think in the big published study that they always had vomiting, didn't they? If they were going to get AKI.
Yeah.
So as long as they're feeling fit and well and, they're asymptomatic and things, you don't have to do it. But I might throw in that you can have a blood test in 2-3 days if you want to be extra careful. There's one on that note. I had try and see if you can beat this. I had a dog that was a dog. What do you call it? Like a dog sitter? Yeah, a dog sitter. And they left a bulk bag of raisins on the counter that weighed 3 kilograms, and the dog ate all of them. And what is more,
definitely make that one sick,
right?
And maybe consider
no.
fluids.
The best thing about this is they didn't bring it in. They didn't bring it in that day. They didn't bring it in. I think they brought it in at the end of the following day, and it was basically diarrheaing out raisins because it had so many.
No.
So the first, obviously, I blood tested it, absolutely normal, like mid-range creatinine, I don't know, 90, whatever that is in American units.
Yeah.
So, and that was a bit different. And I said, not a bad idea to do fluids and 3 kilos of raisins. But the bloods are normal. But it didn't end up having fluids. I can't remember what the guy said. I thought, oh my God, this is his business, looking after dogs.
Yeah.
But I thought he'd be absolutely terrified. But there you go. Yeah.
God. Yeah, I think you do get those weird and wonderful stories that surprise you. I mean, I guess moving on from raisins a little bit, but the other thing that we see this time of year and something that we all need to be on the lookout for is if you get sort of any of those unexplained lethargies in cats and dogs, cats in particular, always remember about your possible antifreeze and make sure you got your Woods lamp around so that you can have a little check on paws and face and stuff, see whether there's any evidence of ingestion. But I actually had a little whippet puppy one year that the owner had seen drink antifreeze. And don't get me wrong, I don't think it had actually drunk a lot, but I put it on a vodka CRI and it did really well. It did really, really well. Kidney parameters stayed amazing. And it's, as far as I know, touch wood, it's still living and fine and doing really well. So I think you do get the really weird and wonderful ones that can sort of surprise you. And, we have all this information that says, oh my God, it's awful, they're going to die. And actually, some of them do really well. So, and Brendan, I was going to ask you, don't you have a ridiculous case that you were going to mention, like a foreign body case that you saw one Christmas? Just because I still feel kind of in the festive spirits. I feel like you need to talk to us about this.
Yeah, this was early December, actually. But, well, going back to that antifreeze, though, you know how you said some of them get better? I think you mean one of them got better because all of mine die. But anyway, yes, I had, this was a Frenchy owner with no money, had eaten 10, 12 foot of a Christmas decoration. It's not quite like tinsel, but you know that really thin ribbon that's quite narrow and it's, I don't know, it's like it's like gold and you can't break it with your hands. It's really tough. It'd eaten a whole thing that went all the way up the wall the night before. I assume the owners hadn't realised, but I don't know because they had no money, so I suspect they did realise. And then the next morning, there was about 8 to 12 inches of tinsel coming out its bum. She'd tried to pull it at home and the dog had screamed, so they couldn't get it out. So she comes in to me with next to no money. I was basically, this is a linear foreign body because it's, this is going to be interception and surgery and da-di-da-di-da. And the lady said, I've got about £200 or something, or 250 quid, and that's it. And she phoned up all these charity hospitals. No one would see her. And the nurse, this is Kath, this is another shout out to Kath, actually. She was just like, why don't you just sedate it and see what you can do or whatever. So we did. And I scanned the abdomen and all the bowel looked normal. I didn't see an interception, a lovely layering, no free fluid. And I thought, okay, it looks okay. So then I gave it a pull under abdominal sedation. And it took me about 15 minutes, but I pulled out the whole 10 foot all the way out of its
No way.
bum. I've got a brilliant photo of the dog's bum with 6 inches of tinsel coming out of it, which we can put somewhere. Poor little thing looks forlorn looking back at me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there you are. That's my, that was good.
There
That's
we go.
Christmas happiness.
Well, there we go. And I guess if anybody else has had really funny Christmas stories that they've had, all the ridiculous things they've pulled out of animals or made them sick or anything, then please send them in because we love them. We love the stupid stories. So as long as the animal's fine at the end of it, it's really quite funny afterwards. So yes, please send them our way. Okay. So I think that just about brings us to a close. I hope you've loved our first 2-week takedown show. You know, we did have an exact list of everything we were going to speak to you about today, but I think we've gone off on a few tangents, but hopefully you find it quite interesting. It's been a little bit of a squeeze putting it all together and recording whilst working full time.
Yeah, and the 2-week takedown is not meant to be an episode that lasts 2 weeks. I think it was meant to be half an hour, wasn't it? Anyway, and yeah, and we both worked too much, so we're squeezing these things in. But yeah, hopefully it was okay.
And all the same, we hope that you found it interesting and hopefully a little bit entertaining.
So tune in for our next podcast, our first bonus episode, where we'll be doing a deep dive into head tilt presentations in small animals. So it's bye from me.
And bye from me. Until next time, take care.
The content presented in the Chatty Vets podcast is intended for licensed veterinary professionals and is for informational purposes only.
Views expressed are those of the host and guests and do not substitute for clinical judgment or individualized patient care.
Drug dosages, protocols, medical advice discussed should be verified against current literature and manufacturer's guidelines.
Class and its creators are not liable for any errors, omissions, or adverse outcomes resulting from the application of this information.
Always consult relevant laws, regulations, and institutional policies in your practice. Listener discretion is advised.